What stuff are you seeing in combat sports that needs to get filtered out?
It's more so I think it's more so the messaging than the actual training. It's I say okay, yeah. Well, let's just go with that for now. It's more so the messaging, just so I don't like throw everything out with the bathwater. But I guess most people will be familiar with like road work within combat sports, where you're just going for long, slow runs. Most days of the week. People will search up, like Mike Tyson training routine. It's like 5 a.m., 10 miles or whatever it is every day. It's not so much that it's not wrong, because there's very rarely, very rarely things are wrong in training. It's just more the application, how it's prescribed, and the reasons it's prescribed that becomes the issue. Because if we go down, how deep do you want to go with this? Like how,
Well, well, like what I can see immediately is like it's not really super specific to the sport. Like the principle of specificity is already kind of gone out the window. Like if you're boxing, for example, like Mike Tyson, you're not necessarily running for hours, you know.
yeah,
Like there's rounds.
yeah, for sure. There's even if you don't go down the specific route, most of the time the physiology is missing from a lot of this. Where okay, I'll just dive into it.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
go into
hopefully
it.
the listeners don't mind. But when we talk like conditioning, it might actually be helpful for some of the people as well who are just doing maybe general fitness stuff and conditioning stuff. But typically, when people talk like I'm trying to train the aerobic energy system, so people will go, okay, boxing, jiu-jitsu, whatever it's an aerobic sport because it's multiple rounds in this many minutes, whatever it is. And so automatically, when someone hears I need to train aerobically, they automatically go to low intensity steady state cardio. That is aerobic training, because anything low intensity is going to be aerobic because it's under where that lactate kind of spikes. So I'm not getting, I don't want to, I don't want to say
No,
lactic acid,
yeah,
but it's,
fully
it's a
dive
horrible
into
word.
it.
So don't say like, but where lactate spikes, so people will be like, okay, I'm going to stay under this area. It means that I'm training aerobically and I'm becoming more aerobically fit, because now I am potentially targeting a higher VO2 max. Obviously, that has been the trendiest thing probably in the last couple of years too, around performance and longevity with VO2 max, which is already a little misnomer as well. But you have that. But what it doesn't address is what's happening at the muscular level, which is likely the limiting factor for most people when we're talking about most sports, but we'll keep it to combat sports to make it
Yeah.
easier. And when we're talking about that muscular level, typically we're talking mostly just about mitochondria. We can throw in like capillarization as well, so actually having blood come into the muscle and then transfuse over. But that's a little more tricky to figure out what's going on there. But within mitochondria, you're typically looking at how well does your muscle use oxygen, versus at the heart level, you're looking at how well you're able to deliver oxygen. Low intensity work typically biases that delivery, and then higher intensity exercise typically biases kind of like that oxygen use. And when people think of aerobic, they think everything kind of works as a switch. They'll categorize it as aerobic, anaerobic, lactic, or anaerobic glycolytic, and then alactic. And they'll be like, these are the three energy systems. I need to train each energy system separately so I maximize whatever it is, without understanding or without knowing that all three energy systems are always working. So for those of you who are listening to this while you're sitting there, you're producing lactate right now as you sit there, which means that you are using the anaerobic glycolytic energy system while you are sitting there. And everything works together with your training. And just because you do something hard like a 10-second sprint does not make it anaerobic. It cannot be anaerobic because there is oxygen being used. And if anyone wants a really good visualization of it, I showed it on my Instagram recently. Now you can check some
At
of those
Sweet Science
graphs
of
out there.
Fighting.
Yeah. So check that out there. But basically, all three systems work together. You'll see like a sharp drop in oxygen within the muscle during, say, like a 10-second sprint, which means oxygen is being used. And you're kind of playing along an intensity spectrum where you may be, your intensity spectrum is basically dictating the fuel you're going to use, so like basically fat or carbs, but obviously not either or, because nothing happens in isolation. And then you're also looking at, you're biasing towards maybe oxygen delivery in the heart, or you're biasing towards peripheral function, which would be at the muscle and be able to use the oxygen. And then you're basically manipulating conditioning to be able to target those adaptations so you can then essentially do high intensity rounds in the ring, on the mats, whatever it is. And it's very difficult to do that from a purely low intensity setup within your conditioning, because you miss so much. You miss so much of the peripheral or the muscular adaptations for that oxygen use. You can get them, but you've got to do so much volume to be able to get there. It's going to take away from your family life, your training, the energy you have to actually train as well, because you're going to be doing 2+ hour sessions. You're basically training like an ultra marathoner at that point. And so at some point you need intensity to start pushing that adaptation. And that's kind of the message that I'm trying to get out there around conditioning, because there's just so much on zone 2 and VO2 max. It's just like, it's nuts. It's just all permeated from the top health influences, kind of come down through to sports performance.
So what would you recommend? Like, let's just say someone's like, I'm going to go for a 2-hour run or a 1-hour run. Like, what would you say, just for combat sports, like, would be a better replacement for a run?
Yeah. So it's going to depend on a few different things, but at face value, the easiest thing you could do is just split that 1-hour run up into faster repeats. So if you're going, let's just say someone runs 10K in that hour, just as an example, maybe you're doing like 2K and then 3K and then making me do math on here now. Just do 3K, 5K, and then like a 2K or whatever. And then just splitting that up into fast intervals and then running that hour at a faster pace. Because there's a trade-off with intensity and volume. So if you're doing low intensity work, for you to spur adaptation, you need to increase the volume because your intensity is capped. The more intensity you put in, the less volume you need. It's the same as lifting weights, you know. I'm sure a lot of people understand that. Like, if you're lifting 90% of your 1RM, you're not going to be doing the same total volume in terms of sets and reps as you're going to do if you're doing 60-70% 1RM. The same thing happens kind of in the conditioning world. So splitting those up, a little more intensity is just going to start pushing your conditioning into a better place.
So if you're doing, like, let's make this a little bit of a case study. Like, if you're training, so actually let's just put myself in there, right? So I train jiu-jitsu a couple of times a week. I love no-gi, so I align my schedule to hit the no-gi sessions.
My gym is no-gi, submission wrestling. That's all I do.
Mate, I'm jealous. I'm jealous. Yeah, I've literally changed my schedule to align with the no-gi schedule so that I not avoid the gi, but I just don't enjoy it as much. It feels less, like the gi just feels less dynamic.
Yeah.
It feels less realistic, like, you know, in the real world. Not that I'm ever going to...
Fingers.
Yeah, like that, and you get like gi burn and all this kind of stuff in your face anyway. And then you just get stuck in closed guard. You're like, what are we doing here, man? Let's just, come on. So I like no-gi, right? I train 2 times a week. A great week, which hasn't happened, to be honest, would be 3. But anyway, a couple times a week. And like, let's just say I have 2 or 3 other sessions to add in. So with like not just conditioning, with strength and conditioning, like how would you spread that out? Just for example, for me, like if I still want to train, but I want to.
If you're training jiu-jitsu twice a week, you just put anything anywhere else where it fits. Because it's not going to it's pretty much not going to negatively affect you because you're just training so little. Like I'm the same. Like I get in the gym 0 to 2 times a week if I'm lucky. Depending, and then obviously everything else is just kind of on top in terms of weightlifting and conditioning and stuff. Yeah. But for most people who are maybe more on the competitive side or recreationally competitive or just kind of really looking to make their jiu-jitsu kind of like their priority, you're typically looking at 2 to 3 gym sessions a week. And I say 3 because I think grappling sports can get away with a third, and they are strength and hypertrophy have far greater advantages in grappling than it does in, say, striking arts or even MMA to some extent. And I think there are some actual potential negative adaptations within striking arts if you're doing too much of that. But within grappling, like, I mean, as you know, as most people know who do the sport, you know, being big and strong, it just helps, unfortunately. It helps. So, or fortunately. So 2 to 3 times. And within those sessions, I like to structure it. I have a very simple blueprint that I like to kind of provide, I guess, people who are not, I guess, starting or just trying to figure out how to structure their programs. Obviously, there's a whole host of different ways and more advanced ways of doing it. But you just structure it from fast to slow, in terms of fast movements to slower movements in your program. So, for example, you might just start with your general warm-up. I like to pick like 3 exercises, low-level exercises that addressing things that I can't get done in, say, a 2-day-a-week schedule, maybe that address previous injury areas or commonly injured areas, or maybe mobility restrictions. So it could be anything like thoracic extension or rotation stuff. It could be some neck work, could be some like low-level ankle plyometric work, and just do it in a circuit 2 to 3 times. And that would essentially be your general warm-up. And it means that you're not wasting like 5-10 minutes standing on a treadmill or whatever when you could be doing something that's addressing something there. Then after that, you go into some kind of jumps or plyometrics or throws. And this is kind of like your fastest work of the day. Box jumps, overhead throws, whatever it is. And then I like to go into, say, like what I would just quote a full body power exercise. So it could be like a weightlifting derivative. It could be like a loaded jump. It could even be heavier throws, overhead weightlifting derivatives, anything like that where you're moving some kind of load relatively quickly. Then you'll go into your heavy lower body movement. Don't care what it is. Leg press, squat, deadlift, whatever you decide to pick there. A relatively heavy upper body push, superset with some kind of upper body pull. And then finish with core grip carry. And you don't have to do all 3. It's just to give you an idea of what you can put there. So if you're doing like a farmer's walk, you're kind of addressing all 3. But you could just do grip work. You could just do whatever ab work someone wants to do, or some kind of carry stuff. And that's just like a general blueprint. And then obviously you can make a more upper body focused version of that, where it could just be, instead of doing the lower body strength first, you would do, instead of doing the heavy lower body, you would do like a heavy upper body, and then you would do like a single leg movement near the end of the program. And it just kind of it gives you the opportunity to train all the qualities that you likely need, with some kind of like athleticism built into it, because you can get very stuck in just kind of like squat, bench, deadlift. And then you can modify the volume based on what you're after. So if you want more, say if you want to do more of your speed power based stuff, you just do more sets of the stuff at the beginning and less of the stuff at the end, and vice versa. If you're really focusing on strength and size, you'd maybe only do 1 or 2 sets of the stuff in the beginning, and you would just hammer the stuff at the end. So it gives you a bit of flexibility in that. And then obviously there's a billion other ways of doing it, but that's just like an easy way of getting that right. And then if you are an older grappler or more beat up, and like some of those maybe jumping and plyometric movements don't really sit well, I tend to like to do kind of like reverse that order. So you do your heavier stuff first. So you might squat heavy first, and then if you go do your jumps and stuff after that, it usually feels really good.